So storms are inevitable in life, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual. They come without warning and test the strength of our faith. But the beauty of walking with God is not the absence of these storms. It's knowing that He's always with us in them, right? Today, we're going to look in the gospel at 3 different accounts of the same event. Jesus walking on water to meet his disciples in the storm. Though told with slightly different emphasis, each account gives us a powerful lesson about following God's plan, even when the path is terrifying, uncertain, or seems impossible. See if I can make this thing work right. Oh, it worked right away. So I'm going to just start by this. I know this is a lot on one thing, and I tried to make it as big as I could. But I'm just going to start by reading the 3 different scriptures that are all accountings of the same event, and then we're going to go from there. So in Matthew 14:22 through 33, Matthew writes, "Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up onto the mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. 'It's a ghost,' they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, 'Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid.' 'Lord, if it is you,' Peter replied, 'tell me to come to you on the water.' 'Come,' he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was terrified, and, beginning to sink, cried out, 'Lord, save me.' Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. 'You of little faith,' he said, 'why did you doubt?' And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, 'Truly you are the Son of God.'" So then in Mark, the author writes, "Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to Bethsaida. Yeah. Some of those cities, those Middle Eastern cities. That's why I don't want to embarrass it. That's why I'll probably never go there, because that would be embarrassing for me. To go on ahead to Bethsaida, where he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, he went up on the mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the lake, I got another slide. You changed it for me? Good girl. Thank you, babe. All right, she's on it. She knew I wasn't going to be able to do all this at once. See? It's like God. You got people in your life. God's always there. You got people in your life to support you. That's amazing. So walking on the lake, about to pass them by, but when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately, he spoke to them and said, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. In John, he writes, "When evening came, his disciples went down to the lake, where they got into a boat and set off across the lake for Capernaum. By now it was dark, and Jesus had not yet joined them. A strong wind was blowing, and the waters grew rough. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on the water, and they were frightened. But he said to them, "It is I, don't be afraid." Then they were willing to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the shore where they were heading. So some of the things I noticed as I was reading these scriptures, preparing for this lesson message, immediately is all over all three of these passages from the three different perspectives. It's to the best, I think, to the best of people's interpretation, Mark is a different book written by John, I think, is my understanding, just from different perspective. John taking the accounts of others and their take on it and writing it down. However it went, however many authors wrote this, they've all got very, Matthew, obviously very precise, takes down all, uses a lot of words to describe things very thoroughly. Mark, similar situation. John, what I noticed though is that they all use Jesus immediately told them what to do. Immediately he was there to offer them calming words, right? Like, don't be afraid, it's just me. Immediately he reached out to pull Peter up out of the water, right? I don't know why that stood out to me. That very different, like not even in the different passages in Matthew, it's the only one that he really talks about Peter getting out of the boat, right? It seems like that's a pretty epic thing. Like you wouldn't want to leave that out of it. Why these other accounts didn't even touch on that, but they all touch on the immediate nature of God and Jesus, right? As he requested that they do what he said immediately. Another interesting tidbit from there that I noticed, like in Mark, he says that it says Jesus was walking out and going to pass them by. And I kind of reflected on that, like Jesus gave them a mission, sent them in a direction. He said, go on ahead of me. This is where you're going, right? I'm going to go pray for a while. I'll meet you there. That was the plan, right? He sent them about that plan. And so that was what he was following through with, right? He was just walking to Capernaum, right? And he saw them struggling, and then they saw him and started freaking out. So he was like, okay, guys, let's relax, That's when he went to him. He was just going ahead to go with the plan. And we had a boat full of seasoned fishermen that were all like, oh, we can't handle this storm, But it was all a part of his plan. So I'm going to go into my message here. So God sends us into the storm. You guys know how, if anyone's been here when I gave a sermon before, I love pictures, so I got some pretty pictures to look at. God sends us into the storm. Each account begins the same way. Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him. This wasn't a detour. It wasn't a mistake. It was a part of his plan. Sometimes God leads us directly into situations that feel overwhelming, not to harm us, but to reveal himself more clearly to us. When we're following God's will, we often assume everything should go smoothly. It's easy to assume that, right? Like Joe had shared. Joe kind of, when she said, spoiler alert, when she was giving her little preamble, I was just like, come on. Like, is there even going to be a point in me getting up here after you're done? No, but it's okay. I got my, geez, older sisters especially. That's all I got. God bless me with two of them. And anyway, so, when we're following God's plan, it's easy to assume that things are just going to, like, oh, I'm doing what God wants, right? Everything should be easy. But that's not the case. In fact, I feel like throughout the New Testament and all these different authors' presentation of God, or of Jesus's life and teachings, the one thing he almost always went back to was like, hey, this is going to be hard. the enemy's going to challenge us, right? The closer we walk with God, my experience has been the closer I walk with God, the more challenges the enemy throws my way, right? The more difficulties are going to come. It's up to me to make those difficulties something that bring me closer to God. So assuming everything is going to go smoothly, but obedience doesn't always look like comfort. It often looks like rowing against the wind. See, I wrote down all these words, and then I just kind of go off cuff, but that's okay. Bear with me. So second, God sees us in the storm. Mark 6:48. Mark gives a beautiful detail. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. And even though Jesus was on the mountain praying, he never took his eyes off of the disciples, right? He was watching it. It's probably why he went up the mountainside to pray, so that he could watch them go. And that's just like a beautiful thing, right? He didn't send them off. He sent them off with a plan, with a purpose, knowing where he was sending them and what they would be confronted by, right? But he doesn't send us into that storm alone. Like, he sends us with a purpose, but he's got our back always. Even when we can't see him, he sees us. Oh, I think I actually wrote that down in here. Just because you don't see him doesn't mean he doesn't see you. God is never absent. His silence is not abandonment. He sees you, your struggle, your tears, your questions, and he is not indifferent about it, right? He cares about us, always, right? When we struggle, he struggles. He doesn't like to see us struggling. He does it so that we can grow. Let me have a drink. So, God comes to us in the, it should be another, yeah, there's a picture. I love that picture. God comes to us in the storm. The disciples saw Jesus walking on the water, something impossible by any human standard, and they were afraid. But he said, "It's I. Don't be afraid." When God shows up, he often doesn't look the way we expect. He walks on top of what we fear the most. The storm that threatens to sink us is the same sea Jesus walks across to reach us. He comes with a message not of condemnation, but of presence. I am here. We walk with God in the storm. It's not another picture. I was hoping for another picture. I like pictures. Probably next. I think I spaced them out pretty good. So we can walk with God in the storm. That's Matthew 28-29. Peter steps out of the boat. Why? Because he wanted to be where Jesus was. Walking on water wasn't his goal, right? He wasn't just like, I want to walk on water too. That doesn't seem like, I probably would have been like, man, that'd be fun. Let's do that. But not in that situation, probably. What he wanted to be was close to Jesus, right? It wasn't his goal to be like, I can walk on water too. He just wanted to be where Jesus was at. So that's why he stepped out of the boat. He just wanted to be walking with Jesus. And for a moment, he did. As long as his eyes were on Jesus, he stayed above the waves. He did the impossible. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to step out in obedience even while you're afraid. Doing what God wants, even if it's difficult. The miracle wasn't just that Peter walked on water. The miracle was that he trusted Jesus more than he feared that storm. Even when we sink, God lifts us. Matthew 14:30-31. Peter saw the wind, got scared, and began to sink. That's real. That's us, right? Like when life throws hard, challenging things in our direction, sometimes we get fearful. Sometimes We start to sink under the weight of it, right? So when we get fearful, we either sink or we cry out to God, right? Cry out to God, and Jesus will reach out to catch us every time. He's always there watching. Remember, he's sitting on that mountainside watching. He knows what we're going through, and he's ready to catch us. Jesus doesn't let us drown in our doubt. He meets us with grace. Sorry. Faith will waver, fear will come, but when we cry out to him, he's always answers. He's always there. God calms the storm and gets us to the other side. As soon as Jesus stepped into the boat, the wind died down. In John's account, it says, immediately the boat reached the other shore where they were headed. Immediately the boat reached the other shore. They've been struggling at the oars for hours just to get a few miles or a few hundred yards. And immediately the boat reached the other shore. You know, it's not to say that they like hooked a cigar motor to it, cigar boat, like a four or 500 horsepower motors to it, and it just shot across the water. It's not to say that it didn't, but it's to say that when Jesus joined them in that place, the peace was so complete. It's like when you're on a long road trip and you close your eyes for a minute, and all of a sudden you wake up and you're there where you're going, right? It's like that peace is so overpowering to everything else that you're going through that you can legitimately not even notice the time pass. You're just all of a sudden where God wants you. That's the peace that Jesus gives us. When Jesus is with us, we reach our destination. Not necessarily faster or easier, but safely and with peace. We're going to get out early. I got some conclusions for you, though.